Hello. So welcome back to Welcome back to Spiritual Astrology. Today I'm just going to talk about some basic facts or basic information about the signs. So just to clarify. Okay, so there's a bit of construction. When you read an astrology book, you're bound to have some biases based on, first of all, the astrologers, the author's beliefs, the author's way of interpreting astrology. And you're also bound to have biases just by basic language barriers, how someone may interpret a certain word. Most people don't actually look up what a specific word would mean. And in astrology, when you're looking at personality, and even in psychology, these things are quite important because it's about understanding. Just like the sign Gemini, which I'm about to start talking about, communication is extremely important in most areas of life. So, communication. So communication is extremely important, and we like to communicate in different ways. So Scorpio is very intimate, and intimate is a Scorpio word. Now, communication itself is a Gemini word, but Geminis like to communicate in a very quick, witty, wordy, speaky, kind of way. And communication is extremely important because it's the way that two people connect. So, it's hard for me to describe what the word communication is without using the word communication because, but basically when you're talking to someone, when you're communicating, the other person is getting what you're saying, but there's bound to be lapse there. And me as a Capricorn, right, I want to make sure everything I say is exactly what other people get. So it's a bit intense, right? But that's, my Gemini and Capricorn, I want to make sure that people understand. Otherwise, there's no point in talking. Now, some people are just very self-centered, there's different signs in astrology that just want to express themselves regardless of what anyone else thinks necessarily, and I have an Aquarius rising with a Leo South node. So these two signs, of course, are a bit less focused on getting the word across and making sure that it gets there. Now, the Gemini-Sagittarius opposition is much more focused on this way of getting stuff across, right? But then you have different kinds of communication. Now this is where the main point of what I wanted to get across in this. There's the sign Taurus and Gemini, which are actually two very social signs. Now let's get down to what the word social means, because in some ways Taurus is actually more social than Gemini because its ruler Venus. So Venus and Taurus there's this weird thing between Gemini and Taurus actually that exude communication, sociability, but it's the ways that Gemini and Taurus communicate. So you could obviously have a Taurus with a Gemini Mercury or Gemini planets, or Gemini with Taurus planets. And this is where things get a bit confusing because when it comes to communication, Gemini is just very fascinated in words. Very fascinated. It's very mental, and that's an air sign thing, right? And they'll communicate with other people, but they'll keep a part of themselves away. So there actually is a hidden side to Gemini. Taurus, on the other hand, actually does enjoy speaking, but it's going to be matter of fact. Slow and steady, A to B to C to D, one step at a time kind of communication. And I found it difficult because I actually enjoy talking to both of these signs, but it's definitely very different. When I want to just chill out and relax and not care and not be serious, hang out with a Gemini because they'll be ADD, but a Taurus will be, one thing to the next. But that makes Taurus sound really boring, right? Now, Venus actually helps to make Taurus fun and sociable, which is actually very different than Gemini. So you take the Gemini way of communicating and you take the Taurus way of communicating, and it's like a different kind of thing. One sign might just kind of be about pure expression, and the other one is about communicating. In this instance, I actually think Taurus is very much about expressing themselves rather than getting the words across. Gemini is more interested in what the words mean, the detail and everything, and also kind of having a bit of fun, like being sarcastic. A Taurus won't really understand that kind of sarcasm. They might take it personally. They might get insulted or hurt. So Taurus is a bit more sensitive in that way. Gemini actually is very sensitive. They pick up and they're in tune with everything around them. Now let's move to another sign. Moving on to Sagittarius and Capricorn. I've talked about this in other videos, but both of these signs are very philosophical. They're both drawn to career and they're both drawn to university. But the difference is that Sagittarius is kind of in the learning process, moving towards things. It has this optimistic kind of joie de vivre, you know, a way of wanting to explore, and it doesn't see the end in sight. It knows that the journey is the point, you know. Capricorn, believe me, because I am one, is always looking to the future, wanting to arrive at a point of perfection, which is kind of depressing, and that's why Capricorn is very serious. But in some ways, Sagittarius can be more serious. Sagittarius is so focused on the ideals. Sagittarius wants to make sure everything is moral and ethical, and that everything comes from a place of genuine truth. And it can be very ruthless and relentless, which is interesting because you may think, oh, isn't Sagittarius carefree? But because Sagittarius has Scorpio as the sign before it, and Capricorn is the sign after it, Sagittarius actually values seriousness above any other sign, because the two signs next to it are the most intense energies, right? So this gives Sagittarius' unconscious mind, Scorpio, and its values, Capricorn, very serious. So regardless of his personality, Sagittarius has a serious life. Capricorn actually will be surrounded by lightness, which is good because it draws out the Capricorn's serious personality. And Capricorn values Aquarius, right? So Capricorn will have a Sagittarius unconscious, a subconscious mind, right? This gives Capricorn in reality, Capricorn is the most philosophical sign because it's deep. It's a deep thinker. And, you know, some people say Capricorn's not deep, it just thinks about the practical day-to-day life. Believe me, that's a piss off for me. I have the right to say what I believe in with astrology because I'm a Capricorn and I've studied it for so long. Capricorns are definitely not just thinking about day-to-day life, like, oh, I gotta go pay my bills, go to work. No, Capricorn does have an aim in mind. It's aiming because its unconscious mind is Sagittarius, so unconsciously, it's constantly aiming. And just like any other sign, basically, there's a way of interpreting everything. It's so frustrating when you read an astrology book and you read a list of characteristics, but what do those characteristics mean? When do they come out in these people? In secret, every sign acts differently than the way it wants to be portrayed. And I'm not saying, you know, not talking about rising signs and sun signs. It's every sign's energy. Every sign feeds off of another sign. Capricorn's self is Capricorn, but Capricorn's values is Aquarius. Aries' self is Aries, of course, but its values are actually very Taurian, and its unconscious is Pisces. Aries is actually the most sensitive sign in actuality, in its mind, deep hidden there, and in secret, Aries is very, very sensitive. And then you have Taurus. Taurus is so stubborn, partly because Aries is the unconscious mind of Taurus. And Taurus values Gemini. That's actually a part of why Taurus is sociable, because what Taurus values is more important than who it is. So if Taurus likes its possessions, and if its possessions are ruled over by Gemini energy, right? Because Gemini rules the sign after Taurus, so that gives it its values, then Taurus Taurus will have a focus on Gemini. This also gives Gemini, the third sign from Gemini, Leo. Geminis tend to like Leos. There's a connection there. There's this kind of expression that both of these signs kind of want. This kind of, it's not so much an expression, but just kind of an energy of life. And Gemini's interested in communication, so a Gemini's got to communicate with Leo energy because it's the third sign, communication, the third house, away from Gemini. So anyway, there's a lot more to interpret. So this is just kind of another video to kind of move along and push forward what astrology really means and the interpretation of what astrology can be. Alright, well, thank you for watching, and watch my other videos. You know, watch my planetary planet videos about, like, you know, what placements you have in your birth chart or what the energies mean. And as always, like, subscribe, and comment. I want to know what people think about my videos, and I want to improve and move forward. My videos, spiritual astrology, I put that first in front of my name. It's not my name. I don't care about my name. It's nothing to do with me. Astrology is above us all. It's beyond us all. And this channel, Spiritual Astrology, this movement, is for the people, for astrology itself, for the world. Okay. Thank you. Bye.